Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open Hour. We're going to give it just a minute to see if we get some more people on here, but we're going to be talking about Public Lab, year in review, and exciting things we're looking forward to next year. So looking forward to this Open Hour and all the exciting events that have been going on. Dan, is that your kitty?
This is my cat. Yes, this is Haley.
Hi, Haley.
That's really cute. You know, we have a Tumblr called the Pets of Public Lab.
Yes, and Haley is on there, and Carmen is too, and my other cat. Oh, that was it. She's done.
Not many people on IRC either.
Oh, including me.
Gerald is, but he's, I don't see him on here. Maybe he's watching us. So, well, I know there are a few people who are going to tune in later to watch the recording. So, I was just going to go over a little bit about some of the things that have been going on with Public Lab the last year, and Liz and Dan, feel free to chime in here. And for those of us who are watching, you can click the button to join us on the live call or join us on the chat page that it's on the Open Hour page, and we're all on there. But I was going to talk a little bit about some of the statistics that have been really exciting on Public Lab, on just the website itself, some of the new groups that we've had coming on, new lists, new chapters, things like that. Some of the kits that have been recent. Hi, Melissa.
Oh, volume, hello.
I'm sorry. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, things are good. How are you?
Good. Good. Did you celebrate Thanksgiving?
We celebrated Thanksgiving before the barn raising. I don't know when, but it's early. It's early.
Great. Well, I was just doing like a quick overview of some of the things I was going to bring up and hoping that other people could chime in on some updates with Public Lab and things that we're expecting in the next year. So those are some of the things I was going to talk about alongside some projects, and then some neat upcoming things we're expecting, some new kits, website updates, things like that. So just to sort of kick things off, the Public Lab main mailing list is even the website was around, and this year we surpassed over 3,000 people on the list, which is really, really exciting. It's a lot of people on there, so it's a great way to communicate with a lot of people who are interested in Public Lab. We've also grown some new language lists. We have a Portuguese list this year, which is brand new. Some regional lists, including Chicago, the Midwest, LA, and Vancouver just got added, I saw. Great. We've also had some new chapter development, and we're expecting more shortly. We had over 700 research notes posted just this year. Over 15,000 wiki edits have been made, which is incredible. And so that's all really exciting. And just spurring off that a little bit with some of the science that we develop as well, Spectral Workbench and Map Knitter, things like that. Since Spectral Workbench has been up and running, there's been over 32,000 spectra uploaded, which is pretty incredible. And that comes from over 4,000 contributors. Map Knitter, there's over 1,000 maps that are on Map Knitter, and some of those being, just one image, and some of them being, the other day I saw one that must have had, Liz, how many, like 30 on it? The one, where was it, Taiwan?
36.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then Infogram, we have over 500 images have been uploaded onto Infogram, which is really exciting because the Infogram is still a new technology here on Public Lab. So some of the kits that have been in development in this last year include the Infogram. That came to the store this year. We also started initiating our own community development based kits. So they're kits that are actually incubated within the Public Lab community and then brought to the store. And the first example we had of that this year was the WeStat, which is really exciting and available on the Public Lab store. And we're looking forward to some more kits that are developed within the community in the coming year. And then finally, there's a lot of projects, and I'm not even going to talk about that right now, just because I know there's so many, and I would love to hear from other people on projects they've been working on this past year. So that's sort of my kickoff to like a year in review. I don't know if Liz or Melissa or Dan, if you want to add anything onto that sort of synopsis.
Well, I think
You didn't mention barn raising.
Sorry? Dan, do you want to go?
Okay. You didn't mention barn raising. We had an excellent barn raising this year. And,
that's true. We had our largest attendance at barn raising to date, and I don't know why. It's been in my mind for months now, and it's escaped my mind on that summary. But we had, I'm going to have to estimate right now because I haven't done a total head count, but between people coming in and out, I'd say about 57 people in attendance at one point or another during the barn raising weekend, which is really exciting and surpasses our last year, which was around 45. And considering that we were rural again this year in Cocodrie, Louisiana, it was an impressive turnout.
Yeah, I'm afraid we're going to outgrow that facility, and I am afraid of that because I really like that venue. And when we do, I think we're gonna have problems finding something that have similar capabilities. It's really great to be able to get away and have everybody be there like 24 hours a day, except for sleeping, of course. But it really helps to build community, I think.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. I like the summer camp kind of vibe that was going on.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. Yeah, summer camp, yes.
Well, I have a couple things to share. Building on Stevie's excellent synopsis, which is that written down as a report somewhere?
Nope, I just threw that all together.
It's really nice. Something that got put together that people might be interested in looking at is going to publiclab.org/wiki/community-development. It's got an overview of actually since Public Lab first got started and up into what's been achieved this year in terms of like community infrastructure. Some of those are the language-specific mailing lists, like Stevie mentioned, and some of them are website features like user profiles and tagging and things like that. So it's a good place to get an overview. And then I'd say, looking ahead to next year, we're seeing a lot more internationalization, the new chapters coming on, activity in East Asia, specifically Taiwan, and in the northwest of North America, BC and Alberta and Canada, and close by states in the U.S.
Also, I missed one. I think this year we added, if I'm counting correctly, 10 new organizers to the organizers list.
Oh, wow.
Yay! So, and I just want to shout out real quick, if anybody's watching on the OpenHour page, if you could click the link above, you can join us in the live call here. So just in case you haven't found that yet, it's a little hard to find on the page. So just if anybody's watching and wants to chime in, we're also on the chat page there as well.
Something else in line with our talk just now about barn raising is, you know, we held our first ever regional barn raising this past year in the Northeast, in addition to our big annual barn raising that Melissa and Dan were talking about. We're hoping to do that again this coming year, and there's already been expressed interest for the Northeast, but you know, a new region that would be really exciting to have a regional barn raising in would be the Midwest. And so we don't have any plans for that yet, but you know, stay tuned. There might be a similar kind of summer camp style get together more close to where you may be living.
Yeah. And we also, this year, we had the first Organizers Summit, which was really exciting. We had sort of a pilot run before that Northeast regional barn raising, but a big one down right before the barn raising just a couple weeks ago, which was really neat.
Yeah, I think that's great to think about, you know, as you said, you know, 10 new organizers and also new capacity for organizers working together coming online this year. Mm-hmm. You know, it may be also in the coming year that we see some time zone diversification, you know, maybe an Asia Pacific oriented call time. You know, we don't know yet, but we are seeing, you know, organizers are really the backbone of the growth and integrity of public lab, and you know, we're seeing that kind of geographic diversity becoming more and more widespread, so we may have some infrastructure to support that.
Mm-hmm. And I think I don't know, I could talk a little bit about projects over the past year, which might be kind of interesting and sort of move us into a little bit of what's coming in the next year. I can just talk personally, but I'd like to hear from other people as well as to ongoing projects and things. One of the really exciting projects that I've had down here on the Gulf Coast is, well, we finished the Ferret area work, and there's a publication on that now. But we've also, you know, it's really nice having like a local project like that people can work on, and sort of helps with chapter development and keeping us in touch, and you know, we're working towards goals on these. The Ferret area one was really neat, and sort of following up on that, Public Lab received their first federally funded grant to run a project, and it's down here on the Gulf Coast to map urban waterways and restoration sites that are around them. And we have 8 sites that we're mapping, and it's been going really well. And so that's a project that's ongoing in through next summer. So stay tuned on the Public Lab, the Urban Waters page, for some maps that have come up from that, mapping trips, things like that. So that's been really exciting. I've also been, I mean, that's just one example. Maybe somebody else could pitch a project that's been going on this last year.
Melissa or Dan?
I just kind of got started in the last week after the barn raising. It's not really a project, but yeah, I'm just trying to start the Vancouver chapter, and I've never really organized other humans before who weren't paid by someone. Actually, that's not true, but yeah, I'm kind of learning how to build a mail list and actually entice people to join things. Trying to sound exciting. Yeah, so that's my little mini project for the next couple months, and assuming it will be successful, then we can start kind of actually having causes to map. But yeah, I'm starting with kite mapping and just kite mapping for the sake of kite mapping, but I'm hoping with more people getting on board that people will have ideas about we should map this because, you know, there's an issue there. Yeah.
Wasn't there some interest as well on to do a spectrometry project up there?
Well, I'm really interested in the spectrometer. I don't have any applications for it in mind yet, other than I need to learn more about spectrometry in general. I'm hoping that I can dump a bunch of my garden soil and some water and have something I can blame on why things won't grow. Like some kind of persistent herbicide or something. I don't know. It would make me feel a lot better about my skills as a gardener because I keep failing at this particular location. Yeah.
Dan, do you want to talk in a little bit about some of the projects that you've had going on this last year?
Really haven't been doing a whole lot, so I'm looking forward, I guess, to this coming year's activity with working with the Raspberry Pi and the spectrometer to look at flare stack emissions from the refineries and the dust monitoring, and just various things that I'm looking forward to more than what I have done in the past. I haven't really been doing too much.
Wait a minute. Tell me about this. I feel like that's not true because you've organized this whole new thing up in Picayune with the Picayune Make.
Well, that's not quite true either. I didn't really organize it. Luke has been the organizer for this, but we did. That's I forgot about that. We did have a grant that we got from Rackspace. Yay, Rackspace! Where we bought some equipment and we had meetings and we showed off the equipment and that needs to continue on. It's just in its infancy phase at this point. But we have haven't finished the capabilities, but we've started. We have all the equipment to do some good circuit board etching and also to do the soldering of surface mount equipment. So we will be able to do some prototyping of electronics pretty soon.
Neat. Liz, what kind of projects have you been up and running this last year?
Well, in the Northeast, there's many projects going on, primarily project-specific versus, let's say, meeting up to learn how to do research. We have projects on the North Shore of Staten Island, working to document local knowledge about historical industrial land uses with the North Shore Waterfront Conservancy, who's working under a grant from New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. We're continuing to work in the Gowanus, year 3 of that project, primarily bringing community collected data into the Superfund Community Advisory Group and making that planning process more accurate and identifying some unknown environmental features such as historic streams that are still running that will affect the future health of the canal, however it's restored. There is lots of water quality work up in New England, specifically around the...
I think we lost you for a second.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead. I hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, there's lots of water quality work going on in the Northeast. The open water umbrella, one of the 3 main umbrellas that's part of Public Lab's new initiative focus, is based up in Boston, and they're working with many community groups from Pilgrim Nuclear Power Plant, advocates tracking its water quality impact to Jones River Watershed Group, Cape Cod Baywatch, and many groups in town looking at their urban streams. So, you know, all these projects are going to be ongoing. There's also many more, but just those as a highlight. But I think what's going to be different in the Northeast for 2015 is that we're going to hold general meetups, kind of how Melissa was describing, where people who are interested in just maybe trying out some new, new tools, gaining some new skills, who then might be looking for a research site to bring those new tools to. So yeah, maybe monthly kind of open meetups. We might organize them around this OpenHour event. If we can. Yeah.
I think it's kind of neat. Liz, you put together a great list of some people's goals during the barn raising. Do you want to go through a little bit about some of what you wrote up here? I have them here if you don't have them in front of you, but you did such a nice job writing them up.
Actually, it's just exactly what people said. If you've got it in front of you, why don't you let people know what page you're looking at and go through them?
Okay, I'm on the wiki, the public lab /wiki/barn raising-2014. I'll put it in the IRC chat here as well as on our little chat page, sidebar. And we just sort of copied in some of the goals that were mentioned during the barn raising that some people had. And this isn't everybody's, and I'm just remembering back that we had a whole whiteboard full of different goals that everybody had, and I'm trying to capture those back. But some examples, Becky's interested in working on lending library information using Google Forms, and trying to figure out how those, I'm trying to remember what she was saying, but how that can be replicable in different places and what it sort of looks like to set up the system for a lending library. Tristan's interested in kite mapping in Norway. That's really neat. Scott is interested in building a Dustuino for the Gulf Coast, which is exciting for me because that's a project that I've been working on a little bit with the Midwest, and it'd be really neat to have other people on it as well. Matthew is Matthew's going to be working on Public Lab TV, which was a new development from the barn raising. Just an idea that we can give presentations about tools and technologies and sort of broadcast those on the Public Lab page or wherever as updates or anything like that. So Public Lab TV is an interest of Matthew. Carla, bringing Public Lab to Newark. Carla's been doing some really interesting work in her community garden that she started, and I think she's interested in figuring out how some of these Public Lab tools, so the newer tools, can be used in her garden, and starting that up. Benjamin Sugar is from Chicago, and he's interested in connecting with people who are working on the Petcoke project. Charlie, who's here in New Orleans, is interested in the 3D printing and aerials, as well as integrating them with after-school STEM programming. Phil Silva is talking about co-authoring journal articles with using the Public Lab tools and technology. And just something that's kind of exciting that came from that is the idea of the Replicate Me tag, which is new and sort of related to that comment, where you should be able, hopefully in the near future, to go on to publiclab.org and search the Replicate Me tag and find people's research that they're hoping to see replicated and try it out and post back your research on what that looked like. So this is kind of an extensive list here, but let's see. Cindy is interested in a UK chapter. We mentioned Anna Melissa with Canada. And just sort of extending the Public Lab network, and so there's a lot of really neat goals that people are looking forward to in the coming year, available on that page, and hopefully we'll extend it out as well. And it'll be really neat next year, to look back and see see what's happened and where things have really developed. So, did anybody else have goals on here that they'd be interested in sharing that I didn't bring up?
I got to talking with Dawn one of the days after the barn raiser, and we were talking about we noticed there was a discourse going on kind of about the role of science in the public lab community. And I think, I haven't gone through the site super comprehensively, but I've noticed that, for instance, with the spectrometry, there is, I think, a foundational page, but it's maybe missing some things that I feel like I would need to understand spectrometry to kind of start poking around in a way that I could apply spectrometry. And so, yeah, I was thinking it would be neat, and I hope I find some time to kind of go through and maybe contribute more to like a Spectrometry 101, or just Research Methods 101, or Statistics 101, or kind of the more foundational stuff that I think would be helpful to communicate from public lab. I don't know. It's just an idea we were tossing around. It needs refinement.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even with the older tools, like the mapping tool, this past year, I know Benjamin and some people up in the Chicago area were working on developing educational materials that go alongside some of these tools. So they don't not necessarily happen on the same plane with tool development and then actually figuring out how to teach about it or how to communicate about it is still even coming with the mapping tools. So it's really neat to sort of see that process, and when people contribute, especially to figuring out the best ways to teach about it. And I know I feel that way about the infogram, and that there's things like that that could be really useful for just picking one up and figuring out how to use it. So feeding back into that would be really helpful on the public lab page. Just out of interest, I compiled a little list as well about some of the kits that people might be excited about coming to the store here in the next year or so, which is really exciting. So we had just a few this past year that I tallied up that came online, but hopefully in the next year there'll be a good bit more. We're hoping for a version of the Riffle in the store, which is a water quality tool. There's an idea and talk about developing some more technology around pole photography in kits. The oil testing kit should be coming to the store, as well as the multi-spec, which some of us heard about a little bit during the barn raising with the PhotoSync guys. So that would be really exciting. And also the FIDO, or the Open Pipe Kit, which is a really neat tool that is about essentially helping to broadcast data. And I don't know if I have RJ or Doogie on here watching who could feed in a little bit more information about these tools. But it's a really neat, I've worked with one up in Wisconsin a little bit, or the idea of what it would look like, and essentially taking the data from a sensor and moving it to an online source so that you didn't have to go to the sensor itself to collect the data. It would be broadcasted. So that's some really exciting tools that we're looking forward to developing in the Public Lab store and having available here in the near future as well. So I see we have some viewers on here, and I'd like you to encourage you to go to publiclab.org/wiki/OpenHour and join us on the live call if you're interested, or join us on the chat page on the OpenHour page as well. What are some of the if you could do like a wish list for the coming year, some of the resources that you'd like to see available on Public Lab?
I think we lost Stevie for a second. Hey, Stevie, can you hear us? Hey, Stevie, I think we lost you for a second.
Hello?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay. I was just wondering if anybody had, in looking forward, how you make like a New Year's resolution or whatever, or you have a wish for the new year. If anybody had, like I hope in the next year in Public Lab we see, and I guess for me it's I want to see 2 Gulf Coast organizers down here. So I had a sort of an exodus of organizers when I came down here. There were people left, went to school, and I'd really like some more Gulf Coast organizers. And then I'd also like to see some development done on people's profile pages on publiclab.org. So does anybody have their wish list for 2014?
I have a wish list. I really like your wish list, and also I have a wish list, which is that, that we dedicated as much documentation to explaining how people can do community organizing, from bringing stakeholders together to setting goals together, and planning before we run outside to do research, although that's super fun. But planning for how we want to use the data for advocacy outcomes for making change from the start. And so I'm hoping that we get as many guides dedicated to that as we do to how do you build tools.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of my big hopes is generally for the public lab community that we recognize that the kind of learning that's going on in public lab isn't just about the basics of science, but it's also about how to collaboratively do research in public. That it's actually a learning moment to figure out how do you have a conversation on a list with 3,000 other people, and how do you share enough information that other people can follow along with your research, but not so much that you're bogged down in writing all the time and not actually doing your research. So I think recognizing that there are so many different learning moments to just being a part of public lab and not just learning about science itself is important to me. There's a corollary of that which has to do with the culture of public lab, that really, like, the values and ethics and even the ways, our communication styles, like our communities, like, super helpful and supportive to each other, and we don't have a lot of name calling or like anger that you often see in open source communities. So my goal is to keep building that culture into public lab, because that's gonna help us stay strong and keep growing and welcome new members in. Mm-hmm. Those are my wishes.
I like all of those. Yeah, I think it's really important to kind of have a multifaceted approach to things, kind of building on what Liz is saying. I think I went to, I think, Liz, you actually forwarded me to Mike Newnham. He's an educator who's he's developing inquiry-based kind of science teaching that he trains teachers to do. But he gave me this kind of infographic that had all the stages of, actually, I'll get it after, but it has the communication piece as like one giant pillar, and I think that's really important. Is I think sometimes a lot of people in science, they focus on just doing the research and being kind of like in that science bubble, but they don't necessarily focus on how to kind of integrate the rest of the community into that, or how it kind of touches the ground in the community after the research is done, like the social implications and stuff. and yeah, just communication skills, big time. A lot of technical people don't focus on those other softer skills, which I think is really, really important. Yeah, wish list. I hope, I'd love to see other people kind of jump into the Vancouver thing and be eager, geeky, and proactive about organizing that. I feel a little bit like an imposter being like being the person who's like trying to get everyone excited about things. I like to do things rather than be a cheerleader sometimes. Yeah, and something specific, which I think would be pretty cool. This is a specific ask. I know there's a few people around Vancouver who've ordered things from the Public Lab store, just because I have friends of friends who ordered the oil testing kit, for example. And I was wondering if it would be okay or ethical, if it would be possible to kind of mine out the Vancouver people and send them a little email being like, hey, there's now a local chapter. Sign up. Is that something you guys can do with those emails, or would that be unethical or creepy?
Yeah, that's something that. Oh yeah, Liz, you run.
Yeah, I could take that. And Melissa, we're going to be talking sometime next week, and we can go over how to actually form a regional chapter. And
okay, yes, I need as much info.
We'll have a work session, but generally, I had omitted saying it, but something that kind of combines the KITS initiative with community development is an objective around welcoming customers, because we have like a huge global customer base in Public Lab. Not that many of which are making the transition from being a customer into being a community member. And where there's a local region, like what you're talking about, Melissa, there's going to be some support going to you from both the KITS initiative and community development parts of Public Lab to ethically do the outreach and help you as an organizer in that area.
Okay. Dan, do you have anything on your wish list for Public Lab Christmas?
Oh, this coming year, I hope to see if I can get some community involvement, since I live in sort of a small community in comparison to everybody else. I have some ideas, but they're just kind of floating around, not very well defined. So that's just something that I hope to be able to accomplish. And then one of the other more geeky science thing is I want to get a hydrogen balloon up in the air.
Uh-oh. Well,
it's not as scary as people think it is.
Yeah, we need a tank. We need to find a tank first.
Yeah.
So.
How big is your community, Dan? What's the population?
Oh, I'd have to go look it up, but it's just a small town. I mean, it's not a one light town here in Mississippi.
Do you have a traffic light? Is that what you mean by one light?
Yeah, that's we have more than one light. Is what I'm saying.
I think
it's not
a good measure
one,
of small towns is how many fast food chains they have. Do you count them?
Oh yes, we have McDonald's, Burger King. We even have a Chili's. So yeah.
You're a three
so
fast food town.
Well, I mean, we've got others are probably Taco Bell. We've got several Subways.
Okay, you're getting bigger here. I think you're a medium town.
Okay, medium, small. but I can go look it up. Let's see.
All right. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add on Public Lab, a year review, or looking forward to the next year? We've covered a good bit here. And I'd like to encourage people to go onto the barn raising page and add on goals that they have. Sort of make that a dynamic page that encourages some facilitation on who might have common goals and work on projects in the near future and things like that.
Okay,
Does anybody have any?
Population in
What is it,
2010
Dan?
was 10. Population in 2010 was 10,878.
Cool. Thank you. Not so big, not so small.
Yeah.
I think there's 10,000 people that use the subway station in my neighborhood every day.
Yeah, like I said, kind of small.
Does anybody have anything else on this open hour topic?
No.
Okay. Well, that being said, we'll have a next one in January, so we will see you in the new year. And there's some good topics being thrown around, and I'm pretty sure I know what it'll be. But stay tuned on the Open Hour page for January's Open Hour topic, and we'll see you next year.
Awesome! Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Stevie.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
And Liz and Melissa.